Hello, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. It's me, Michael, aka Fruit Taco, aka the coach of the Route 1 Burbs, back with another Wooper Club League feature match. This week we have the Buffalo Bouffalant going up against the Wooper Boopers. The Bouffalant have gotten back to an even 2-2 record after an unfortunate start to the season, while the Boopers are sitting at a pretty 4-0 after a great start. The Boopers and Bouffalant have had some great matches when they've met recently, and you can be sure that this one is going to continue the trend. So let's jump into this little bit of a tongue twister of a match with the Buffalo Bouffalant and the Wooper Boopers. The Bouffalant have Cinderace, Latios, Hisuian Typhlosion, Terra Captain Yanmega, Terra Captain Rotomo, Gligar, Bisharp, Komala, Empoleon, Iron Hands, and Terra Captain Appleton. They'll be going up against Sneasler, Zebstrika, Terra Captain Enamorus, Jirachi, Terra Captain Charizard, Excalibur, Tatsugiri, Serena, Incineroar, Sableye, and Mudsdale on the side of the Boopers. Of course, starting off as always, looking at how the speeds of the teams match up, the Boopers, I would say, have the edge in speed with the fastest Mon in the matchup and more Mons at or above base 100 speed. Zebstrika and Charizard being lower tiers probably aren't huge factors in the match though, so I don't think it's a huge advantage for the Boopers. I think the Bouffalant aren't off too bad at all. Looking at the matchup, the rest of the matchup though, the Boopers are weak to Fairy, Ground, Ice, and Rock, with Dragon, Flying Ghost, and Normal being okay neutral types into them. I think Cinderace's speed and coverage are going to be pretty big for the Bouffalant here. The Enamorus and Excalibur are scary, so keeping some fast pressure on them will be very important. You've got that Libero-boosted Iron Head to be able to hit both of them. Latios could perform similarly, but between Enamorus, Excalibur, and Incineroar, there's a lot that could kind of do a big chunk to it. Of course, Jirachi also resists both of Latios' stabs. Typhlosion's ghost moves look really spammable though, with Focus Blast as an option to catch the Incineroar off guard. I think what I'm really interested in is what the defensive options the Bouffalant are going to bring. Gligar, Empoleon, and Iron Hands could be nice walls, but some shared weaknesses on the team could mean thorough prep for a lot of the Mons the Bouffalant end up bringing, and we'll have to see how they account for that. Looking at the other side of the matchup, though, the Bouffalant are weak to Ice, with Dark, Dragon, Flying, and Ghost being decent neutral options. Excalibur and Enamorus just look insane this match. Earth Power hits every Fairy Resist on the Bouffalant, so Moonblast, Earth Power, and Stellar-type Terra Blast with Contrary boosts could easily tear through them. The Excalibur also looks really big. The only Pokemon on the Bouffalant that aren't weak to Ice or Ground is Komala. So Dragon Dance Excalibur with Earthquake and an Ice move will be crazy if it can get a dance up, maybe even 2 behind something like some screens. Sneasler, of course, is also great speed here, and Jirachi and Incineroar look like solid defensive options for the Boopers. Overall, while I'm a Bouffalant believer, the Boopers just seem to have a really good matchup. Enamorus and Excalibur look really good, and with the hot streak they've been on this season, I think I'm going to throw my hat in their side of the ring for this match. But with all of that, let's see how the coaches decide to prepare for the match and what they will be bringing. For the Bouffalant, we're going to start things off with Cinderace. Max attack Jolly Nature with enough speed to outspeed Enamorus, but not Zebstrika, and solid HP investment protected by heavy-duty boots. Libero boosted Pyro Ball, Sucker Punch, and U-Turn with Court Change to counter hazards. There's some interesting concessions on the Cinderace set, but solid choices. Pyro Ball does 84 to 99% to no-bulk Enamorus, and is a 43% chance to OHKO no-bulk Sneasler. Meanwhile, Sucker Punch does a respectable 26 to 31% to Sneasler and 30 to 36% to Excalibur for the ability to pick off weakened attackers. No high jump kit to catch an Incineroar switch in or Iron Head for Enamorus and Excalibur though. No Choice Scarf to outspeed Scarfed or +1 Enamorus and Excalibur. Cinderace definitely had a lot of options it wanted to pack this week, and while I won't disagree with any of what the Bouffalant brought, I think it'll be interesting to see what ends up paying off and what they wish they had found room for on this set. Moving on, Iron Hands has EVs all over the place with enough speed to outspeed no-speed Incineroar, a lot of HP and special defense investment, some physical defense, and some attack with an adamant nature. Close combat and brick break stab with earthquake and heavy slam coverage options. The Roselli Berry and Bulk let Hands almost always live +2 modest Moonblast from Enamorus after rocks. It also takes 85% max from +1 Adamant Excalibur's Earthquake. Maybe not the exact calcs that the Bouffalant we're looking at, but it goes to show you the bulk. Meanwhile, Close Combat and Heavy Slam Oko max HP Excalibur and Enamorus as well, with Brick Break clearing away screens and Earthquake hitting Sneasler and Jirachi. This is a very versatile set. It looks like it's intended to mostly sort of sacrifice it to stop itself to stop a sweep, but with how scary the opposing sweepers are, I think you're really happy if you can make that trade. Next up is Empoleon, max HP, max special attack, modest with competitive to activate on Intimidate. Shukaberry lets it take a ground move like Enamorus Earth Power or Excalibur Earthquake, and then it can hit back with Flash Cannon and Surf Stab options with Vacuum Wave Priority and Roost. I like this set. Much like the Iron Hands, this can take a big super effective hit, OHKOing Enamorus with Flash Cannon and KOing Excalibur with the combination of Flash Cannon into a Vacuum Wave. Surf covers Mudstale and Incineroar with Roost to stay healthy, and if it can predict an Incineroar switch and get in first to activate competitive when the Incineroar switch is in, watch out for the huge damage that this thing will be putting out. Really like this Empoleon set. Taking a look at Yanmega, we've got max special attack modest with enough speed to outspeed Adamant Excalibur. Throat Spray gets a +1 special attack boost after using Bug Buzz. Don't ask me, I assume Bug Buzz was the wings. I don't know how the Throat Spray works there. Air Slash is additional stab with Terra Rock, Terra Blast, and Protect to get a safe speed boost. Unfortunately, Yanmega here needs the Throat Spray boost to OHKO Excalibur with Terra Blast, but it naturally OHKOs Enamorus. Of course, at +1, Bug Buzz does over half to max HP Jirachi. Air Slash is almost guaranteed to OHKO Sneasler even without the boost as well, so definitely some solid attacking options here. The Bouffalant have been making great use of Yanmega this season, and this match looks no different. Speed Boost lets it act like a Choice Scarf Mon to outspeed and pick off threats, with Terra Rock and Dual Stab doing good work into the Boopers lineup. I think the Throat Spray might be a little cheeky though, given that Bug Buzz isn't incredible into the Boopers. I don't know how often you'll be activating that spray, especially with no boots limiting your ability to switch in before you Terra. But if the Bouffalant do find a way to use Bug Buzz to maybe pick up a KO on a weakened Pokemon and get that boost, they are going to be looking pretty. Next up is Hisuian Typhlosion, max special attack with a rash nature boosting special attack and lowering special defense. Enough speed to outspeed Adamant Excalibur, and then the rest of the EVs in HP. Frisk is going to reveal opposing items, and Focus Sash will let it live one hit. Eruption and Fire Blast stab options with Focus Blast coverage for Incineroar, and then Quick Attack as a priority option. I'm a bit surprised by this set. Quick Attack shows you how scary the setup threats of the Boopers are. Quick Attack is only doing 11%-ish to the likes of Sneasler, Enamorus, and Excalibur, but being able to pick off a Focus Sash or KO something on its last legs can be the difference between getting swept or not. Focus Blast covers the Incineroar as well as hitting Excalibur harder, but the dual Fire Stab is going to surprise me here. The Focus Sash and Eruption make me think this is an intended lead, hoping to match up into something like maybe Jirachi being a little slower trying to set rocks. Eruption is a good chance to OHKO max special defense Jirachi and is good if you can force a switch, but with no boots to and several potentially faster mons on the other side, I'm not sure it's going to be all that useful. With Incineroar being the only Ghost Resist, I definitely expected to see Shadow Ball on this set, so we'll have to see how it all plays out for this Typhlosion. Last up is Gligar, max HP and defense with a Rocky Helmet instead of an Eviolite like you might expect. Earthquake Stab with knockoff and U-turn to utility as well as Toxic. This looks like a hard Sneasler answer to me, resisting both stabs, being immune to poison with immunity, and punishing it with Rocky Helmet Chip. Knock Off and Toxic let it punish things on the switch, and all around this looks like a solid physically defensive wall. Base 105 defense will let this still take hits fine even without the Eviolite, so this is a pretty cool bring, I think, for the Bouffalant. Overall, the Bouffalant brought a fairly defensive team in my mind. 2 resist berries, a focus sash, and a ton of investment in bulk really shows what this matchup is like. This team looks focused on taking some hits from Enamorus and Baxcalibur, and if their defensive prep lets them even just trade 1 for 1, once those 2 threats are gone or heavily chipped, the Bouffalant should be able to find a path to victory from there, so expect some very calculated play from the Bouffalant in this match. And now, looking at the Wooper Boopers team here, we're going to start things off with Sneasler. Max Attack, Max Speed Jolly, and a Choice Scarf to outspeed Scarfed Cinderace. Poison Touch adds a chance of poison to all of its contact moves for some nice potential additional chip. Dire Claw and Close Combat Stab with Throat Chop to hit Latios and Typhlosion and U-Turn to pivot around. This set makes a lot of sense. Max Speed and Scarf give you the fastest Pokemon in the match guaranteed, and you've got moves to hit 7 Pokemon super effectively with nice utility and potential Poison Touch poisons on U-Turn. Looks like a pretty standard but really solid set here for the Sneasler to start things off. Next up is Enamorus, max special attack with a hasty nature boosting speed and dropping defense, and enough speed to outspeed Adamant Cinderace. Heavy duty boots will avoid Hazard Chip, of course not wanting to take extra rock damage. Moonblast Stab with superpower physical coverage, and Stellar Terra-type Terra Blast, both boosting your stats thanks to Contrary. Tailwind in the last slot to then outspeed and sweep the opposing team. I really like this set. The choice to go with Superpower instead of Earth Power as your coverage move is pretty smart, I think. It doesn't have coverage for Cinder and Typhlosion, not having that Earth Power, but it's going to let you hit Bisharp for 4 times effective, and Empoleon on the physical side when they're probably going to be prepping to be hit on the special side. Factor in the defense boost, letting you take Cinderace or even potentially Iron Hands hits better, and I think it's a pretty smart choice. Once this starts boosting, it's gonna be a pain to stop, so the Bouffalant better be on their toes around this one. Next up, just as scary, is Baxcalibur, max HP Adamant with enough speed to outspeed max speed Bisharp. Heavy duty boots, of course, protecting from rocks. Ice Shard and Glaive Rush stab options with Earthquake coverage and Dragon Dance to boost to crazy power levels. I went over it before, but these attacks hit 10 out of 11 Pokemon super effectively and will be absolutely deadly with 1, God forbid, 2 Dragon Dances up. Glaive Rush is a strong neutral option, but it does mean you're just hitting Rotom and Gligar with Ice Shard instead of a stronger Ice move. We'll have to see if the Bouffalant can exploit that or the raw power will be enough for the Boopers here. Next is Jirachi, max HP with enough speed to again outspeed max speed Bisharp, and then the rest of the investment into special defense and leftovers to let this take special attacks, probably specifically looking at that Latios. Rocks and Thunder Wave with U-Turn Pivot and Drain Punch to hit Bisharp and Empoleon. This is a surprising set to me. It looks great, but no Wish or Screens surprises me some, as I think the Boopers have been making excellent use of those moves this season. Drain Punch makes me think they're really concerned about the Bisharp, which a Scarfed Bisharp could be pretty good into Enamorus and Baxcalibur, so I understand. Thunder Wave spam is pretty great, but if the Bouffalant learned that Iron Hand switches into this for free, it could be problematic, so we're going to have to see how this Jirachi set pays out. Next up is Incineroar. Max defense, basically max HP, with a third set of boots and Intimidate to be a resilient physical wall. Flare Blitz and Knock Off Stab options with Brick Break coverage and Parting Shot. Pretty standard defensive set here. Brick Break is an interesting choice over Close Combat, meaning they're probably at least considering the Bouffalant bringing screens. Flare Blitz OHKOs Yanmega, but isn't particularly useful outside of that, so they might have been able to get away with something like Will-O-Wisp, but the extra power for hitting neutral targets or maybe a Terra Steel is definitely useful. For all the concern about Bisharp, it's interesting to see them bring Intimidate, as that means this can't switch into Bisharp without potentially giving it Defiant Boost. Still, a solid overall set. Tatsugiri is up last. Max HP with enough speed to outspeed Cinderace after a rapid spin, then the rest of the EVs and a boosting nature in special defense. Boots let the switch into Hazard safely to spin them away, and Storm Drain eats up Empoleon's water moves. Draco Meteor and Surf Stab options with, of course, that spin to get rid of hazards, and Nasty Plot for some extra power and to counter Draco Meteor stat drops. Empoleon is the only Pokemon that resists both stabs here, and with Rotom-Mow being the only other water resist that isn't weak to Dragon, this could be surprisingly dangerous. I do think that this will be awkward to use though. With no special attack investment, this set really wants both a Nasty Plot and a Rapid Spin to start taking KOs. With the HP investment, this actually has an okay shot at getting them against like the Empoleon, but with Empoleon resisting both stabs and the crazy natural bulk of Iron Hands, I'm just not too confident in this stealing the spotlight. It should be a surprising threat that can hopefully open up a path for the other offensive pieces to win though. Overall, well, the Boopers clearly heavily prepped for Bisharp, which we know the Bouffalant aren't bringing. Will this mean there's one fewer piece to get in their way, or that all that prep will go to waste and the Boopers won't be able to deal with what the Bouffalant do bring? Well, only one way to find out how that plays out, and that's to get into the match and watch how it all played out. Okay, checking out this team preview for the Boopers, they've got to be pretty excited at no scary Bisharp, but that does also mean that a lot of their prep is unnecessary, so maybe a little bit some mixed feelings there. No Komala and Terra Rock on Yanmega means Baxcalibur is going to have a super effective move on every opponent all match. No Latios is also potentially one less big threat that the Bouffalant are not bringing. For the Bouffalant, I think these are probably, at least mostly, if not all of the mons that the Bouffalant expected to see. Yanmega looks great if they can get some chip on the frailer mons and then speed boost up to sweep in the end, but I think the Bouffalant are feeling pretty understanding of what they see. A lot of that was expected. For the leads, we're going to see Sneasler and the Typhlosion. Typhlosion, of course, going to immediately frisk that Choice Scarf. Scarf, U-Turn, and Focus Sash, definitely both of these leads make sense for their respective teams. Frisk revealing that Choice Scarf is going to be really big though, knowing that the Sneasler will be locking itself into moves and could potentially outspeed even +2 Yanmega depending on its investment. Turn 1. Throat Chop is going to do big damage and get a Poison Touch Poison to boot, severely weakening Eruption going into that Sneasler. The Bouffalant were probably maybe expecting a U-turn and wanted to hit a more powerful Eruption than risk missing a weaker Fire Blast. When I see the Choice Scarf on the Sneasler, the first set I think of is 4 attacks, so with expecting Dire Claw, Close Combat, and U-turn, you have to think about what that last move could be. Unfortunately, the Bouffalant didn't expect something for the Typhlosion, or at least expected the Sneasler to be protected more, as Fire Blast does do upwards of 87% to it, and that Scarf is important to kind of preserve for some of the faster mons on the side of the Bouffalant. The Bouffalant do at least know that Sneasler is locked into Throat Chop now, but this turn was a big win for the Boopers, I think. Defensive Gligar is going to switch in here and get some nice Rocky Helmet chip, revealing no Eviolite. Sneasler out to Baxcalibur, who loses its boots to knock off, but definitely now threatens Gligar. A great play by the Bouffalant here, staying in, taking a Glaive Rush, and then going to U-turn out into Cinderace. The hard switch here was pretty obvious, so the Bouffalant expect the Boopers to make a prediction and not go for the Ice move right away. And that's going to pay off pretty big, getting additional Rocky Helmet chip and boosted U-turn damage courtesy of that Glaive Rush, while ending up in this now fast and threatening Cinderace. Incin is going to be the obvious switch in here, so the Bouffalant are going to U-turn into the Iron Hands here. Parting Shot is going to then weaken the Iron Hands, going out into that Jirachi, but Close Combat still going to do a third to it. Jirachi is going to U-turn out here into the Incineroar for further stat drops. Then we're going to see Earthquake bring Incin to a little over half. Cinder comes in and ends up taking a big knockoff for almost 50%. I think the Bouffalant maybe expected another Parting Shot, as Close Combat still does about 40% to Incin, and that Incin is an important Cinder switch-in. The Boopers are the ones winning the call this time, though, getting big damage on Cinderace and removing the boots, which are definitely not a Choice Scarf, something important to know for Dragon Dance Baxcalibur later on. Cinder going to get a nice crit U-turn here, though, going to bring out the Typhlosion as a potential sack, but risking a potential Cinderace high jump kick. Parting shot is going to bring in the Enamorus. The Boopers actually double out into Tatsugiri, taking a light quick attack before Poison is going to take down Typhlosion, and Iron Hands will take its place. It's interesting that the Boopers didn't go into Tatsugiri first. My guess is they were afraid of potentially Scarfed Typhlosion, which would make a lot of sense with the turn 1 Eruption. Scarfed Eruption, definitely a set. They went then Enamorus to bait a potential Scarfed Fire move, and then went into Tatsugiri to resist that move, while Poison would finish off the Typhlosion. A smart play by the Boopers, but now they have to contend with Iron Hands, who has a chance to OHKO even with its low attack investment, and Enamorus is the only Mon comfortable taking a close combat at this point. Incin going to switch in, get the attack drop again, as well as the defense and special defense as it's sacked to close combat, before now Tatsugiri is going to come out again. With Hands, defense is down, and Empoleon's going to switch in, but Tatsu's going to Nasty Plot up. Gligar comes out as a sack to Draco Meteor, and now, after that, Cinder's going to come out probably for U-turn chip. U-turn going to do actually over half, and Empoleon going to then come out to shrug off a Surf. Tatsugiri can't touch Empoleon, so Jirachi's going to come in and shrug off a Flash Cannon. Iron Hand's going to switch into a Thunder Wave here. Some nice momentum for the Bouffalant there. Jirachi didn't go for a Psychic move last time, so I don't know if the Bouffalant suspect that Jirachi doesn't have one, or just that Hands is a good switch into a status move, or an attack into that Empoleon, whatever that attack may be. Thunder Wave was an interesting call from the Boopers. Rocks, I think, might be a better general call, as I don't expect Frail Cinder or Yanmega to switch in to potentially get hit by that Thunder Wave, and Rocks gives you some chip for the rest of the match. The Boopers were clearly concerned about Steel types, looking at their team building choices though, so I wonder if they could have thrown out the Thunder Wave in case Empoleon was actually 2 attacks, Roost, and Agility. Would have been a cool set to see, and definitely if it had gotten up in Agility there, would it be pretty scary. Drain Punch is just going to tackle Hands as Earthquake is going to come out and do over half to that Jirachi. Cinderace is going to switch in, possibly expecting Jirachi to switch to Enamorus to take the Earthquake/close combat better. Pyro Ball will take out the Jirachi though, but that lets in the Scarfed Sneasler. Sucker Punch to get some decent solid damage off, but Dire Claw is going to give Cinder the KO'd status, meaning Bouffalant are going to get a free turn with this Empoleon now into that locked-in Poison-type move. Locking into close combat would have let in the Yanmega, and locking into Throat Chop would have let in Iron Hands, so this was definitely a tricky choice for the Boopers to make, and they were going to be kind of behind on this turn no matter what they chose to go for. Boopers are going to sack Sneasler here to a Flash Cannon, and then we're going to see them bring out Tatsugiri. I think this was a pretty big misplay. The Bouffalant still have that Terra Rock Yanmega in the back, and Modest Yanmega is a good roll to KO everything left. Sneasler outspeeds +1 Yanmega though, so I think you need to preserve that Choice Scarf. It gives you a chance to beat that Yanmega, but right now you're looking really rough. I'd have switched to and then sacked the Tatsugiri instead of that Sneasler. You don't have a lot to hit Empoleon with, but it can't really hit you either, so you might be able to rack up some chip on it before you go down. Draco is going to get some chip onto that Empoleon. Flash Cannon will come out and looks like a 3-hit KO. Nasty Plot will cancel out those stat drops, but Empoleon does reveal it has Roost. Another Nasty Plot will let them get off one more big attack before they take one last Flash Cannon, but the Vacuum Wave comes out, taking out Tatsugiri and leaving Empoleon at full to face this Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur Glaive Rush gets off okay damage and would have hit Yanmega switching into Earthquake, but Flash Cannon is going to be an easy KO. Stellar Terra here, as Empoleon probably expects Earth Power, but the one-time Stellar boosted Superpower is a guaranteed KO here and gets a nice defense boost for taking an Iron Hands hit later on. Yanmega is the one to come out though. The Bouffalant had an interesting choice to make. You live one Moonblast, but Heavy Slam is a coin flip to KO through that defense boost and never KOs if Enamorus goes for a second superpower for extra chip first. Now, the Boopers also have a choice of their own here. Tailwind on a likely Yanmega Protect here, or Terra Blast expecting the Bouffalant to predict some kind of status move and go for the Terra Blast of their own right away. Yanmega is going to protect, and that Terra Blast will do nothing into it. With the speed boost here, Terra Yanmega is going to be able to OHKO Enamorus, though winning the match for the Bouffalant here in the end. Couple things to go over about this very close endgame. There were a lot of different ways it could have played out. Had Enamorus used Tailwind on the Protect turn, it would be set up to potentially win. If Yanmega Terra's next turn and you KO with Terra Blast, after that contrary special attack boost, Moonblast would be a roughly 44% chance to KO Iron Hands through the Roselli Berry thanks to that one-time Fairy move boost from Stellar-type Terra. Heavy Slam would be a 56% chance to OHKO back, so there's a couple 50-50s going on there. Superpower would also OHKO Rock-type Yanmega and let you take one hit from Iron Hands, but that call would depend on how confident you were in knowing Iron Hands spread by now. However, the Bouffalant could have chosen to not Terra Yanmega on the following turn, who would die to Moonblast but not Superpower or Terra Blast, and then be able to protect the next turn to get to +3 speed to outspeed Enamorus in Tailwind and pick up the KO. And even if Moonblast does get used to KO Yanmega, then Iron Hands guaranteed lives a Moonblast and has a chance to KO with Heavy Slam like before. The safer way to counter Tailwind would have been to switch into Iron Hands, always live one hit on the switch, go down next turn, and then protect with Yanmega again to stall out the last turn of Tailwind before getting the KO in the end, since Tailwind can't be extended while it's already up. So there were a lot of ways for the Bouffalant to win, but it could have come down to some lucky predictions or damage rolls and really gone either way. But the Bouffalant will end up with the winning record this season for them finally, and the Boopers take their first loss of the season, but hopefully not their last because I also play them. What a great game from two amazing coaches, though. Thanks to them for the great match, and to you all for watching. We're starting to come up on the end of the regular season, so make sure you're subscribed to keep up with our coverage of this season, and I'll see you in the next one.